Greetings, 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 and welcome back to Earth School Journey. We are so happy to have you here. I am your host, Uni, and this is my lovely co-host, Umi Steph.
What's up,
And
y'all?
hey, tonight we are continuing our conversation on conscious community and what that means to us, and how that has been showing up for us in the past, in the present, and also what we're looking to create for the future. How you doing this evening, Umi?
I'm doing pretty well. Doing pretty
that,
well. I'm here. I'm blessed. How about
that
you?
is,
How you doing today?
I'm doing great as well. Just really excited to continue this conversation and share with the people, what we feel, is conscious community and spiritual etiquette, and, how we can continue to show up for each other. There's just, so much going on in the world right now. Every time I open up any one of my apps, it is crazy. Like, I don't even have to log into certain things, just on my Yahoo page or my MSN page, like those different pages of, like, I'm just like, oh my God, like there's just, it seems like there's such an overwhelming um amount of tragedies and a
Mm,
lot of discord going on in the world. And so I'm really happy that we have this space that we're curating, where we can really help people to get centered and get back to what's most important, which is us, each other. Not
right.
me over you or you over me, but us together. So yeah, that's really how I'm feeling, and I'm really excited to have this conversation. So let's jump right in.
Okay.
And I want to ask you, before we actually jump into the title, that conscious community, I want to ask you about presence. Our homeroom check-in, which is what we're doing tonight, is really about presence. It's about making sure that we are here, that we are conscious and we're aware, and we are, just sharing our presence with our family, our community, and being
Mhm.
present with ourselves. So I want to ask you, how has your presence been over the last, or since we last met? Do you feel like you've been, more present? Have you been dipping into the past? Have you been concerned about the future? Like, where are you with presence?
Mhm. Well, I feel a little spread thin, right? I am doing my best to be present in the moment in whatever it is that I'm doing, but I do find that I slip back into triggers, which, in present moment when things happen, I get triggered and past stuff comes up that may not exactly fit the situation that's happening before me. But also for me, I think more so than the past coming into the present, it's me looking into the future. And because because for me personally, anxiety, which is, living in the future, is constantly worried about what's going to come. And while I don't feel like I've been very anxious, I have been kind of on that, like what's next, what's coming. I think it's because it's like the change of seasons is coming. We're getting ready to hit Virgo season, which is also the start of school, and fall time. There's so much change. There's a lot of routine. There's a lot of summertime is so free flowing, and everything is it's easy to be present. And then as summer starts to roll to an end, I start thinking about, oh, okay, so in September, I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be homeschooling my son. I'm going to be starting my classes back up again. I'm going to be doing this ministry. I'm going to be working on our channel. And so I have to admit that I haven't fully been living in the moment. I've been a little preoccupied with future. And so I'm glad we're doing this check in right now because it gives me the opportunity to be like, okay, I need to bring it back. Yes, you have to plan, but also it's summer's not over. Enjoy it.
Right, right.
Yeah. Yeah. How about
Yeah,
you?
I
How's your
love that.
presence been?
You know, um, I'm happy that summer's not over, first of all. Definitely a summer baby. I would love to soak up
Me
as
too.
much of the heat, as much as the sun, as much of the good vibes as possible. So I'm happy about that. And for me, and it's so funny, like I love how you frame that and you're like, listen, I'm thinking about what's to come, what's ahead, like what all I have to do. Like there's so much that I have to do. And I'm, just anticipating that and getting a little
Hmm.
anxious about it because some of it is a little bit new and you know what I mean? And so on and so forth. So I love how you frame that. And I love the fact that I can you know, kind of like say I'm on the opposite end just to bring like the full perspective and be honest, and be authentic that, I sometimes can be, stuck in the past, thinking about things that have like kind of triggered and hurt me in the past and I want to move on. I want to get over it. I want to, you know what I mean? I want to live my life. I want to be happy. I want to say I did the best that I could in the moment. I want to say, the Most High has me no matter what. He knows my heart. The universe got me. I want to
Right.
be that positive person that I really am. But just being honest and just thinking about how challenging it is to kind of release, you know what I mean, some
Hmm.
hurtful things and painful situations, and then when things come up to remind you of that, those triggers, and it's just like, oh, like I thought I was past that, I thought I was over it, I thought I was beyond it, and so I've kind of been, even though I have, moved beyond a lot of things physically, I feel like there's some things from the past that still kind of haunt me a little bit, and so I've been working through that, and it has been, very eye opening because it reminds me of the what? How do you say that word? The Fibonacci sequence, the
Fibonacci. Yeah.
Fibonacci, and the spiral, and the onion, and all of that, and how it says that you kind of got to just keep moving through it. Stay present, take it one step at a time. Count your blessings.
Hmm.
Just look at what you have gotten through, and how strong you are as a person, and how you have you didn't let certain things stop you from still believing in God, still believing in love, still believing in what I mean, like good
Right.
things, so yeah, that's kind of where I've been. I've while I'm striving to be present, I can honestly say that sometimes the past like still haunts me a little bit, and
Hmm.
I just want to be happy. I want to be loved. I want to be surrounded by conscious people who care and who do things that are, thoughtful and caring. I want to be around people that are careful with each other. This is what conscious community is about. It's about caring for each other.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of the things that I've experienced in the past have led me to have this sort of mindset, and it's just like, okay, you see some of the kind of ills of the world, and it's like, okay, this is why you're here, this is why you decided to join forces with Umi, and share and lift your voice for the good,
Right.
so
Right.
yeah, that's really where I am. And I'll stop
Yeah.
there before I like end up bawling.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I think it's really good to do these check-ins. And that's one of the reasons why we put this in our homeroom check-in is because, I really invite our listeners and our viewers to check in with yourself and see where you've been lately, and just start with today. How much of today were you thinking about what's happened in the past, and how that's how does that steal the joy from your current, your present? And how much of your thoughts are in the future about what's to come, and what is that stealing from your presence,
Mm,
like, because being present, you get to enjoy what's right in front of you. You get to be grateful for what you have. And so I really invite each and every one of you to just take a minute to take inventory. So that's the first, I think, check-in moment of like, are you present? Are you being present? Are you letting your past or your future steal from your now?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing it home and really balancing everything out. So I'd like to, ask you our next question, I guess you could say is, our topic this month again has been about conscious community. Has that shown up for you this month? How has it shown up for you this month? Yeah, we'll start there.
Well, I think it is definitely shown up. It's always present. I think whether or not you're focused on it is probably, the bigger question. And for me, I'm noticing more since we've been talking about this, what communities I'm in. I'm a master gardener. I've got that community, and I'm a mom and a wife. And so I have my family and household community. And then there's my neighborhood, and just being more aware of that. And, so when we're talking about conscious community, those aren't necessarily conscious communities, necessarily, not even in my house. Not everybody, especially kids, are not, conscious necessarily. And so just remembering to bring my consciousness to my communities, even when those communities are not, quote unquote conscious communities or spiritual communities, just my neighborhood, but being conscious in that, and intentionally interacting with people and meeting them where they are. you know um, One of the things that I have struggled with, and I've realized this, is that I need to learn to trust everyone's evolution. Like,
Mm-hmm.
not everybody's on the same evolutionary path as I am, first of all. So what works for me is not going to work for everybody, nor are
Mm-hmm.
they going to move as fast or as slow as I am. They may be going too fast or too slow for me. And so just learning to trust that they are an evolving human too. Whether they have gotten to the point of realizing that and actively taking a part in it is really not up to me, and that I can't force it.
Mm-hmm.
So some of these conversations we've had me, made me realize that I think I try to force people to evolve because I can see the light in them. And I have to learn to be okay with them being where they are and take care of myself accordingly. Not necessarily, get angry with them because, well, they just haven't, their evolution hasn't fleshed itself out yet. Um, and I just need to believe in the truth of who they really are. We are all one. We are whole. Whether or not you see that yet is not up to me. And I can't make it up to me, and I can't force you to see anything, because then I'm not being a good person in community. I'm not meeting you where you are, right? And so something that I realized, in this last week is that there's conscious community, yes. And I have that. I have that in my Agape East family. I have that with you and our group, and that's great. But how am I being conscious in my other communities, in the day-to-day communities? So,
Yeah. That's a great point. We go out into the world and we experience people from all over. And like you said, of course, you have your family, which is a little more challenging because you have certain expectations and things that you want to see, but that's a little bit more, because it hits so close to home, and that's where the control, surrender or releasing the need to control kind of like comes into play when you're like with your family, because you're so close to them and you feel like your influence should be doing more, they should want to do, you know what I mean, but
mm-hmm.
you can't control that. They're, like you said, their evolution is not up to you, you know what I mean,
Right,
that's between them and their higher power, as they
right.
choose to believe it to be. And when we go out into the world and we interact with other people, be it our neighbors and our master gardener community. I have a master gardener community here as well. And you know so many people have different viewpoints and mindsets, and they come from different places and
Mhm.
different cultures and all of that. And like you said, like we all we can do is be conscious and aware of the energy that we're bringing to the space, and make sure that if it ever becomes unhealthy or whatever the case may be, like we know how to maneuver, and you know what I mean, we know
Right.
our consciousness is allowing us to stay within this space. But if ever it says we shouldn't be here, we do what we have to do, and we exit. And I feel like it's such a it's kind of such a, I don't want to say a strange place to be, but it is kind of strange when you hold such dear belief for unity and love and kindness, and for oneness, and other people don't. And it's just
Right.
like, don't you get it? You want to scream and yell and shake them, and
Yeah.
and then you're a crazy person. And it's like, no, no, you can't do that. Again, you have to release control. You have to trust, like you said, their evolution. And
Mhm.
it can definitely be challenging, but that's what it's all about. I remember you spoke about sometimes you have to be the one to go first in certain scenarios and
Mhm.
relationships. And when you're the one that goes first, it can be lonely. It can be, you can doubt yourself. You can say, am I really supposed to be doing this? There's just so many things that comes up when you go first. And a lot of times you don't realize that you're not just the first one in your family, in your household, or anything like that. You may be the first on your block,
Right.
the first in your master gardeners class, the first in your church, the first, even in your church. Because as we've spoken about before, a lot of churches do not, a lot of times they may not look at the health consciousness, you know what I mean, physical health
Mhm.
consciousness. Maybe they're focused on religious consciousness or spiritual consciousness, but they're not focused on health and physical well-being and stuff like that. So sometimes we have to bring that to that environment, you know what I
Mhm.
mean. And it's just really
Right.
showing up and allowing ourselves to be our true selves, and just allow ourselves to accept that, like you said, accept people for where they are, and who they are, and not try to force anything. You know what I mean? That's the most important thing. So
Mhm.
yeah, thank you so much for sharing.
So tell me, what have you learned this week about conscious community or yourself in community?
So there's a lot, like, like you, I have, very similar experiences as where I feel as if, in my household, there's certain things that certain expectations and things that I have, and I have to surrender and allow. And I see changes, because what I realize is that what's so beautiful is how my daughter will, maybe when she was a little younger, she wasn't really into, herbalism, and, she wasn't really into like spirituality like that. She told me she didn't want to
Mhm.
hear it. She wasn't into it. And of course she has little friends now that are, they're out, and, they're, her friends have her reading the Bible and quoting Bible verses and praying, and you know what I mean? All those things that, when, she was a little younger, she wasn't really into. And I just used to, I had to surrender. I had to let it go. You know what I mean? And not only that, but there's been books and things that she's wanted, like herbalism books. Now I've been into herbs for years now. I have like a
Right.
whole small apothecary, and I have all these herbs and things. And I just love how I feel like the Most High has brought people into her life who are exposing her to certain things. And so when she comes to me and she's like, I heard, mullein tea is so great for the lungs. And I'm like, yeah, we have some in here, yeah, I'll get you some,
Right.
or, she wanted a book for herbal tea recipes. I'm like, I have that book upstairs. Like, you can have it. Like, I'll buy me another one. Like, here, you can take it.
Yeah.
And so I love how surrendering and not making her feel any type of way about it. Just like, okay, if you're not into it, fine. But I feel like when someone is really supposed to join you on your journey, especially your children or your loved ones,
Hmm.
there's going to be I feel like the Most High is going to send community to them so that they can come back to you and you can share with them. Even sometimes you gotta take 40 days for a 4-day trip, you know what I mean?
Right.
Or however it goes. So that's been showing up for me, and I absolutely love that so much.
Hmm.
It's made me really happy to know that um I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And even though I thought that maybe my daughter wouldn't ever really be into some of these things, she is. And it's
Yeah.
it's so beautiful. It's really been beautiful. On a larger scale, I've been thinking about how I just have this like mom mentality now wherever I am, and I look at like the younger, children that I'm exposed to at work. And, in even in Master Gardeners, there's some that's younger than me. And I'm just looking at everyone as kids now. And I just want them to be protected, and I want them to be safe, and I want them to be in spaces that are going to help them and not exploit
Hmm.
them. You know what I mean? And so I've really been thinking about, what can I do to kind of like help the younger community come up, and, especially in like certain spaces where they may not have people to support them and things like that. So there's a lot of stuff that's been coming up for me in conscious community, and, just thinking about how I can um, kind of like really show up for the next generation a little bit
Mm.
more than maybe previous generations has were able to show up for us. And part of me feels like they just didn't have the resources that we
Right.
have and whatnot. So it's no judgment or anything, but we
Yeah.
have to use what we have in order to push the collective forward. So yeah, those
Hmm.
are just some of the ways it's been showing up for me. And I'm pretty excited, because it
Yeah.
it can be a little disheartening sometimes. But I think when you allow the Most High to do what the Most High does, everything comes full circle.
Hmm. Amen. I feel a new topic for another, I don't know, series or episode or something about being the conscious one in your community, even when
Yeah,
that's well, even when it's not a conscious community, like being the conscious one in your everyday, all around you community. I think that's
yeah,
a conversation that needs to be had because it seems to have come up for both of us.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's what it is. And I feel like, that's kind of how we found each other. Of course we have, loved ones and, that we care for and things like that. But it's like I really can't talk to a lot of people in my personal life about a lot of the things that I can talk to you about. Even these
Hmm.
sorts of topics that we're talking about here, these are not things that, and no shade to anyone, you know what I mean? But it's just not really on their radar. And,
Right.
that's why we have the internet, thankfully.
True,
So
true.
we
I think
can connect.
that's the beauty of having a conscious community is when you're interacting with the community, at large that may not be conscious, you have someone to hold you in high consciousness, to pray with you. As far as conscious community, like I always have prayer partners. I pray with people. You and I have the oath that we do, and our conversations and how we keep each other grounded, and that helps me to go into these other areas and still be, be able to
Yeah.
be centered, be able to be conscious, be able to be present, you know and I'm not perfect at it, but you know what I mean? Like we kind of help each other. I don't want to say by osmosis, but that's kind of what it is, right? Just by being in proximity to each other, we give each other more strength. Um, and so that's just something, an observation that I've had in this last couple of weeks or month of us talking about conscious community.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% because I feel like sometimes when you are, and I don't want to get too off topic, but when you are in communities where people are, and you know, I like part of me is like, I don't want the word conscious to come off as like in the wrong way. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want it to come off as like we think we're better than anyone or anything like that. To me, conscious is simply being more thoughtful and careful with how we treat ourselves and each other. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, a lot of people have either, as I said last week, they're either jaded or they think that, it doesn't matter. They don't really care. They don't see the benefit of it. No one else is doing it. You know what I mean? Or whatever the case may be. But when we're able to kind of talk to each other and other people who have similar, mindsets and similar beliefs and knowings, we know that, that this is really a thing, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And it can
Yeah.
really change, the world that we're living in. And we can make things better for all of us by, being more conscious and aware and just being more careful, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you about last week we had our rule our live on spiritual etiquette. Has that shown up for you in any way this week as an extension of conscious community? Have you had to um, you know, be a little bit, I mean, I feel like you show that all the time anyway, but has it shown up in specific ways for you?
Um. So if we're talking specifically about conscious community, I don't think I've had a whole lot of opportunities at this point to really deal with my
Hmm.
conscious community. Like as so I haven't had anything stir anything up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, you and I flow pretty well. I think we have our we don't really encounter issues anymore because we've kind of worked through like things, and so we know each other well enough, and we can always talk to each other. Um, as an extension, like kind of my spiritual community of like classmates and things that I'm going through, like that training that I'm going through, practitioner studies. Um, I haven't talked to a lot of people a lot except for prayer time, and we've been like we pray and we're out, and we pray and we're out, and I think it's beautiful. Like we have that understanding. Um, and then all summer, I've always been able to tap in with somebody to pray, even if it was like no back and forth conversations, just like, hey, what you need to pray for, and they'll pray for me, and I'm like, hey, what do you need to pray for, and I'll pray for them, and then we may just hop off a call doesn't last more than 10-15 minutes. And when it comes to spiritual etiquette, like some people could see that as rude, but this is the parameters of this that we have set up, right? Is no matter what's going on in our lives, we can find 15 minutes if we don't get into story. If we
Mm.
don't get into story, like I'll tell you just enough story so that you understand what I need you to pray for, right? And you can say that prayer for me, and then I'm gonna turn around and ask you what's going on so that I can pray for you, and you tell me just enough of the story that I can be like, okay, I see where what I need to pray for. And that has been awesome. Like it has really sustained me all summer being so busy with everything. Having these opportunities 2 to 3 times a week to tap in with somebody and say, hey, this is what's going on. Or to just say everything is going great. Let's just pray, you know, for the continuation of that, for
Yeah.
the next unfolding, for the next, great thing to come to pass or whatever. Or just to pray a prayer of gratitude and do that. But so that's kind of been my experience this week. It's just been I'm just tapping base, touching base. And the summertime has really been a more of a time for me of being with my family and my community outside of my conscious community, my spiritual community. But having that quick, those quick, very highly intense moments of prayer with people really have kept me going. So,
That
yeah.
is so amazing. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like a lot of times when we, share what we're going through with people, and I'm guilty of this, like, I'm not even going to hold you, like, trying to offer suggestions, trying to help fix, trying to, you know what I mean? Trying to solve it for the person.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes all we need is prayer so that we can see it, because at the end of the day, no one can solve this for me but me and the Most High. You know what I mean? And
Right.
but your prayers can help see me through, in the spirit. So I love that so much, how you all have an agreement and everyone is sticking to the agreement, and no one is feeling jaded or upset or
Mm-hmm.
shortchanged, or like, oh, they, some people will still try to force their opinions and thoughts and things, and it's like, no, 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 this is what we set up, this is what we're doing, we're sticking to this agreement. And I think that is just absolutely wonderful in so many different ways and facets. So thank you for sharing. I really hope that some of the people who are watching live and those who are going to watch the replay may take that into consideration. Sometimes
Yes.
all your family member or friend needs is just for you to pray for them, not to try to fix it. And I'm talking to myself right now. Well, look at
Right.
myself. This is for you.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
I
Well,
appreciate.
real quick, I'm just gonna say shout out to all my prayer partners. You know who you
Yes.
are. I love y'all. You hold me down. I appreciate you.
I love that. Shout out to Umi's prayer partners. That is beautiful. I love what y'all have going on. That's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. I'll say for me, um, I think probably, what I shared earlier, just about my daughter, and making sure that, like, my heart posture is in a grateful place versus I told you so, or you could have learned that from me, or you know what I mean, or anything along those lines. Like, it didn't come to me in that way, but I did stop and express my gratitude. I'm just like, wow, this is amazing. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
anything she comes for, like, I pretty much have. Like, she is definitely here. We're on the same page, and this is wonderful. And I, just not having any sort of resentment or anything, any resistance for how she got here has been absolutely, it's been wonderful for me, and just having that gratitude, it really has been. I think that's how spiritual etiquette kind of has been showing up for me, is like just to remain in gratitude. And
Mhm.
like I said earlier, one thing I've learned over my life is, everything comes full circle. You know what I mean? It's a beautiful thing to know that everything's going to come full circle. And all I have to do is continue doing what God told me to do. You know what I
Right.
mean? And
Right.
that's the most important part. And to be grateful along the journey and not to judge, or like you said, where I think people should be or shouldn't have been, or what they should have heard me say or feel. But just really trust that it's all happening in divine timing and in divine alignment. And even Queen of Fu, I remember she told us this when we were going through Sacred Women, when we were going through our initiation. She was like, some of your family members and your friends, they're going to think you're crazy. They're going to think that you've lost it. She
Mhm.
said, no, just stay on your journey. Just keep doing what you're doing. And, one day, some of those people are going to come to you and they're going to ask, what are you doing? And they're going to ask for, you know what I mean? And so seeing it in real time is just beautiful. And I'm so grateful that, I've stuck to it and I didn't give up. That was another thing I was talking to my daughter about earlier. Just telling her, like, I'm so grateful that I didn't give up on a lot of these things on my journey, you know what I mean? And that I've stuck through them. Um, I feel like that's kind of a part of spiritual etiquette for me, because it's like the Most High has given me, you know, an assignment essentially, and it's like, are you going to see this through? Are you going to give up? Are you going to stay the course? Are you going to be grateful? Are you going to continue to show up as you know, as you said you would? And so it's not easy, but
Mhm.
we're getting through it, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So I want to ask you, so you've talked about, you know, how your community has been showing up and how they've been supportive of you. Have there been any challenges with your conscious community? I'm not sure if you specifically shared about that, besides sharing about like feeling anxiety about what's to come, but has there been any challenges as a whole?
Overall, yeah, there are challenges, right? I would say there hasn't been a whole lot recently. Like I said, I haven't had a whole lot of contact outside of my prayer calls and us, meeting to do our YouTube thing and our meetings and stuff like that. But just overall in general, there's always, learning to tolerate where other people are. That what I was talking about earlier about not trusting everybody else's evolution. It applies to conscious community. It applies to other people who are on this spiritual journey, who are learning the truth of who they are, who are awakening to God as a more than what we learned about in religion, right? And in that process, kind of honoring and respecting where people are, um, and trusting my practices to get me through situations. I'm trying to think of a specific situation, but I feel like everything has been going so good that
That's
I don't have a whole
great.
lot. I don't have a whole lot to say at the moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I I don't I don't
don't
anticipate
force
any
it.
issues. Yeah, and so I'm not. I just I think I'm learning that just trusting everyone's evolution, that they're going to get to where they are, to trust that where I am and I don't have to be as far along as someone else is
Yeah,
another thing. I have some spiritual friends who like are really in tune with the spiritual world and who like see things, angels, and um get prophetic visions and all of these like really visual, like, oh, I can see that. And avoiding that like inferiority feeling, you know what I mean? Like
mm,
not feeling like, oh, I'm not there yet, or maybe I need to meditate longer, or maybe I need to do this longer, and just trusting that like where I'm at is okay. It's where I'm
yeah,
supposed to be right now. It's fit for me. This is my journey. So just as much as we have to trust that someone else's evolution is on their timing and in their way, all is in divine timing. I have to trust that my own evolution is in divine timing and not feel this need to be so far along my journey,
yeah,
so awake and enlightened, and that it's okay to be where I'm at. For me, that's probably the biggest thing that's come up. Like I really haven't had any issues of like conflict with people in the groups that I'm in right now. Um, and I think I just owe that to all of us kind of being on this like really serious about our growth and our development and our accountability to one another and to ourselves. And so all of the things that we've talked about in kind of the spiritual etiquette um, conversations that we had. But yeah, it's more, it's like we have said, it's like it's really the self development more than anything else, and not allowing myself to feel not good enough, not allowing myself to feel like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, or I'm not far enough along, or that's that like it's my anxious tendencies to want to jump ahead and be far, be there already. Um, Regulating that part of my nervous system that still is so concerned about the future.
yeah. I hear
Yeah.
you.
How
And
about you?
I love that so much that you are, well, yeah, I just want to say first, I love that you are like really taking accountability at a higher level, you know what I mean, and not being down on yourself, because it again, it always starts with us. Before we go into any community, we have to make sure that we are coming from a place of wholeness and not a place of comparison or a place of, superiority or inferiority, just trusting that we're where we're supposed to be and everyone else is where they're supposed to be. I gotta stop moving my I'm not used to my camera being here, so I know I'm like kind of like shaking a little bit on the desk here. But I just want to say that I think that is absolutely amazing. For me, I have to say, um, the only challenges that I've had are just making sure that when I agree to something with someone, that they stick it out. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I feel like life can get in the way, and things can happen, but when we when we agree to do something, and I'm guilty of this as well. So I'm not, like I said, I was telling my daughter, just about finishing things and
Yeah.
seeing things through to completion. Has It's not something that I was brought up around. You know what I mean? Like there's just a lot of things that I feel like important parental figures in my life would kind of leave undone. You know what I mean? And me kind of being one of them, feeling
Right.
neglected and things like that. And so, what I have realized is that the more that I hold myself accountable, the more that I am coming into contact with people who hold themselves more accountable. And so it's helping me to, you know, really understand that everything that's inside of me is on the outside, as within so without. And I've come to appreciate that so much. To hold myself to a higher standard is allowing me to come into contact with people who do as well. And there's still like there's still some straggling here and there, because I'm still fine tuning and getting to where I'd like to be. But I think that overall, like you, there haven't been really any issues or anything like that, any challenges. If anything, it's probably what we talked about earlier, which is staying present in the moment and not getting caught up in the past or the future. So I know we said we were gonna make this a little bit of a shorter episode today, and we're coming up on 45 minutes almost. So it's been a little longer than we expected it to. One of the questions that I had here, and I think transparency is like extremely important. So I'll ask you, is there anything that you need from this community now? Like, is there anything that we can do to help you on your journey?
Um, I guess my question would be, as in the community of our Earth School journey kind of community. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Anything that I need right now? I don't think so. I think just us continuing on this journey together and kind of letting it unfold how it's supposed to unfold. Um, yeah, I don't. It'd be lovely if we had more subscribers and viewers.
And
I
comments.
could I could use some more of that. Come on, guys. Like, subscribe, comment, share, all that good stuff. I don't like to ask people to do that. And I know that like that's not
Yeah.
the social media way. But I don't feel like right now I feel like you and I are really doing a great job of putting topics out there, talking about them, and then behind the scenes doing how, we do with our, y'all don't even know, we have full out sometimes sessions of, we're supposed to be meeting to do work, but let me tell you this thing that happened. No. And I don't know how to deal with it. Help me. So I appreciate you, because you don't know how many times I've been
Likewise.
about to lose my mind, and I'm like, okay, girl,
Same.
can we just time out on the work, because I need to vent this so I can get it off my chest, and then we can move on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't know how many times we have spiraled into a really great conversation that turned into a topic.
Yep.
And that's just the nature of how this has unfolded for us, and I love that, and I appreciate you for that, and I
Likewise.
appreciate us, and our combined, you know juju,
Yeah. The juju.
the juju that we have going on here, our little vibe.
Yeah.
We are a vibe.
Same. We are. Listen.
We
Okay.
are a
Yes.
vibe.
Yes, we are. Look. Wait till the rest of the world catch on. They're gonna be like, oh,
Right.
okay.
Hmm. We're a vibe, y'all. How about you? You need anything from us right now? From me, from our community at large, other than likes and subscribes and comments?
Right. Listen, comment. Okay, listen. I want some comments on
Ask
these
us some
posts.
questions.
But yeah, let's chat. Let's chat. Um, I feel like for me, just like you, like just to continue on with the journey, and for us to continue to hold ourselves accountable. And I just hope more people will really like be aware of what's going on in the world, but know that we are really essentially crafting the world that we want to see every day. And so we have to be very mindful of the energy that we are taking in, and the energy that we're putting out as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said earlier, like reading and looking at some of these things, I've been very alarmed, and I haven't been alarmed in a while. And I think that's why it really caught me by surprise. Like, I'm like, wait a minute, like this doesn't feel good. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Like this is uncomfortable to me. And I'm sorry, my thing must have come out here. Um okay, we're back. I'm like, this doesn't feel, comfortable to me, where I have where I've been. Did I freeze? Did you
You're
freeze
going
up?
in and out a little
Somebody
bit, but
froze
you're
up.
good.
Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, my apologies. I realized that my charger was out, and it's like, oh, you have 10%. Like, nothing wants to say charge today. I don't know what's going on. But but yeah, what I was saying was that I noticed that when I looked at my phone, like I opened up my phone, and you know how it just opens up to like Google or Yahoo or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, it just, something didn't feel right. I just felt like, wow, like I'm seeing all of these stories about all of these tragic things. And I don't want to be, I don't want to have my head in the clouds, of course, or in the sand. I want to be aware of the things that are going on. But I started to feel a little anxious, and I had to, kind of cleanse my, like my homepage, like, there are certain amounts of this I want to see and don't want to see. Like I had to
Mm-hmm.
reset my algorithm, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And make sure that I'm seeing what, the things that I want to see. Yet again, I want to be aware, but I don't want to be inundated, bombarded, with a bunch of things. I want to keep my energy uplifted, because
Mm-hmm.
I know that, what, the work that we're doing is, community building, and you have to stay on a certain frequency in order to do the type of work that we're doing. And again, it's not to be delusional about what's going on in the world. Yeah, we're very much in tune, we understand, and that's why we're here today because
Right.
we understand. And so,
Right.
if anybody could do anything for me, I would say just definitely make sure that you're paying attention to the things that you're consuming, the things that you're watching, you're listening to, you're eating, and all of those things. And make sure they're in alignment with where you really want to go. Make sure they're in alignment with oneness, with wholeness, with love, and with care and kindness and
Mhm.
respect for everyone. Um, and when you see stories that are heartbreaking or negative or anything like that, just send a prayer up, for all of us. You know what I mean? Send a prayer up for these low vibrations that have been that seemingly have been taken over, for them to go back to wherever they came from, so that we can have peace and we can have love, really start to think about that. So yeah, if anybody could do anything for me, it would probably be that. Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate you talking about that. Something that one of my teachers always says is that the news is just a request for prayer. You can watch it, but just to know what to pray for, not to take it in, not to believe it, not to believe it as the truth of who humanity is, because media sensationalizes everything, blows everything out of proportion, makes things worse than they are, and never really concentrates on the positives. Like, you might get a feel good story here and there, but you don't really see all the good that is happening. And there's a lot of good happening in the world.
Right.
It's a
Yeah.
lot of good happening in the world, but you just don't, it's not newsworthy because it's not sensationalized. And so, I really appreciate that. My teacher always says it's just a prayer request. Watch the news, be aware, but choose it. Look at it as an opportunity to pray. And so, I love what you said about making sure you're paying attention to what you're consuming. I mean, are you seeing things about the craziness going on in politics? I'm not even going to bring anything up specific, but are you seeing all the craziness that's going on in your feed every other video or every 3, 4, 5 videos in a row? Like, are you consuming things that are negative? Because it just brings your vibe down. Doesn't mean be unaware. Like, all right, it's an election year. Know who to vote for. You know what I mean? There's an election coming up here in Virginia. Like, everybody, like, no, you can know those things. You can look into those things, but don't be so wrapped up in the story. I really feel like that's what I'm learning. That's my big lesson this month. Is like, don't get wrapped up in the story. Don't get wrapped up in the story. Not a person's story, not the media's story. Just don't get wrapped up in the story. Pay attention to what you're taking in. And sometimes just got to transmute it and let it go. You know? Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that so much. And while you were talking, just real quick, I started thinking about just like the overall, like when you said like pay attention and you'll like know what to pray for. um you know Things that came to my mind were like greed, and you know what I mean, like selfishness, and control, and you know what I mean, like these are like, instead of praying for things specifically, I feel like the principles and the principalities that the
Mm-hmm.
Bible talks about, the energies behind it that are prevalent, are what we really need to focus on when it comes to prayer. So
Right.
just food for thought, maybe something you all want to explore further and think about when you're looking at these stories. What is it that we're seeing here? Is it jealousy? Is it wrath, anger? Like, what are we seeing here? And what should we be praying against? So thank you so much
Mm-hmm.
for that. That was absolutely beautiful, and something that I have to take note of for sure.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't thought about it from like that perspective. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely beautiful. So yeah, thank you. Before we close out, is there anything else you'd like to share about conscious community? Anything else at all? Anything on your mind?
Oh, nothing at the moment. I mean, there's just so many conversations that I want to have, and I
Yeah,
I know in this short period of time, like as we're wrapping up, I don't want to bring up anything new, but I am
yeah,
looking forward to us diving deeper into this conversation of community. And we've only just barely scratched the surface about community. I think there's just so much more to have a conversation about. So I want our viewers and our listeners to really just be on the lookout for more conversations like this, going deeper on different aspects of community and how you show up in community and leadership of community and things like that. Like, and I do think earlier I had mentioned the idea of being the conscious person in a community of people who may not be spiritually conscious. Right. So I look forward to having those conversations, and that's really all I've got right now.
Yeah, I look forward to it as well. And again, we are your peer guides. We are, on this journey with you. And, we may have some insights and, we may have learned some lessons along the way. But that doesn't mean that, there isn't more to learn. That doesn't mean that there isn't more for us to explore and share. So we definitely want you to always keep that in mind, that we are we're really embodying this in real time, and holding ourselves accountable, because we want to make sure that what we're sharing here is authentic to who we are and the lives that we're living. So thank you all so much for joining us this evening. This has been amazing. We really, like, it really flowed. We thought we were gonna just have like a short episode. And
Yeah, we still end up doing a full hour. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's absolutely amazing. Again, please like, comment, share. Let us know, how you show up in conscious community. How do you feel about conscious community? Are you the conscious one in your community? And kind of what we mean by that is just like, are you aware? Are you thinking about how your actions may affect others, not just in the moment, but maybe down the line? Are you leading with love? Are you leading with kindness and care? Really think about that. And and if not, how can you do that? You know what I mean? How can you lead with more love and kindness and care? And yeah, again, share, like, comment. We'd love to hear from you. And like Umi said, we have so much more to talk about.
So much.
We just never. Okay, we're not. We could go on and on.
We got like 5 years worth of topics that we can talk about. So much.
But we're so grateful. I'm so grateful. I'm just really grateful to be able to share my journey with you all, and hopefully help change at least one life, or help one person. You know what I mean? That'll make it all worth it. So yeah, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yes, with Earth School Journey. We look forward to seeing you next week. Next week we have study hall. So what we're gonna have is some questions, some journal topics, some prayers, some affirmations, and all of that related to conscious, to help you stay in alignment with your journey in conscious community. We really look forward to seeing you next Wednesday at the same time, 6 p.m. Eastern. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a beautiful, beautiful night. Peace.
Peace.